Welcome to the Method!
Welcome to the Method. In today's episode, we have a special guest. Her name is Sandahl Taylor. She is a pageant queen. She won Mrs. Pennsylvania 2018 and Mrs. Germany World 2020. In today's conversation, we talk about everything from her childhood and upbringing to her struggles as a young adult, which included things like her dad unfortunately having a heart attack and a stroke. She is a survivor of domestic violence, as well as being homeless somewhat for a period of time. And today we talk about how she kept such a positive mindset with the support of her family and friends, and what she's up to today. So enjoy the podcast.
The method, we're eating and sleeping or fight. The method, for a marriage or divorce or one night. Well, I know you've everything that sounds pretty dumb, but the methods you use to get shit done. If you're chatting up a lover, you're going on a run, then it might be wise to heed the words of a pro with a little bit of help. Who knows, to get some happiness out of your woes, to get promoted to CEO of a happy mind inside your head. You don't want to wake up dead, thinking why you work so hard on things that hardly work for you.
Is that going? Yes, it is. Yes. So, Sandahl Taylor, nice to meet you. Nice to be on the podcast. A little bit of Sandahl information for everybody. You're born in Pittsburgh. You were Miss Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, that is. You were Miss Pennsylvania 2018, Miss Germany World 2020. You are of German heritage, Cologne, in fact. And you are representing Germany in the Miss World competitions. A Steelers fan, am I right?
Absolutely.
Oh, and a wife and mother to 2 children. Is that right?
Yep. I always say 2.5 because you have to count your husband as a half of a child.
Oh, very nice. And your name Sandahl is for my dyslexic brain has been really difficult to finally understand, but it's quite unique.
Thank you. So typically that's like the first question I get asked. Like, you did a great job pronouncing it. You actually said it perfectly, I have to say.
Oh,
and you didn't ask me how to pronounce it, which was even better. So kudos to you. Because you tried to pronounce it, and you I don't know if you did your research, but you definitely pronounced it correctly.
Well,
so
a lot between me and Alex, so I got my practice in together.
I love it. So would you like me to tell you the story about where my name actually comes from? Because I think that is very interesting, and it might make you laugh this day.
Yeah, go for it.
Of course.
Okay. So the first thing is, I have to ask, because you guys are from England, but do you guys know who Arnold Schwarzenegger is?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, that's a silly question, but some people just don't know who he is. So my name comes from the very first Conan the Barbarian. Do you guys remember watching that?
I haven't seen it, but I do know the film.
Well, you're going to watch it now, right? You're like, I'm going to watch this now. In this movie, there is this beautiful, tall, blonde actress, and she plays his love interest, and her name is Sandahl Bergman, and she's a famous actress. She was on Broadway. She was in All That Jazz and a whole bunch of just different things. And my mom loved her so much that she decided to name me after her.
All right.
What the fun part about the story is, during my pageant years, I think it was 2017, but don't quote me on the year. I'd have to look at the pictures. I actually got to meet her at a comic book convention, which was really, really cool. And the first thing her bodyguard said to me was like, "Oh my God, I cannot believe that you have her name. Normally everybody gets named after her character." And he literally took me through the line of people to meet her. I felt really bad because I was waiting in line. He's like, "No," he's like, "she's going to want to meet you." And I didn't know what else to do. He's like dragging me through this line of people to meet her, because I showed him my ID to like prove that was my name. It was so cool. So I ended up getting to meet her. I got a photo with her, and it was probably one of my most favorite events, because I finally got to meet the person I was named after.
And you've never been tempted to do one of your costumes in one of the pageants dressed as her character from Conan the Barbarian?
So I've tried to figure out like how to connect that. So when you do your costume, it has to represent where you come from.
Okay.
So for Pennsylvania, when I competed as Mrs. Pennsylvania America 2018 in the Mrs. America system, I actually did a costume that was made completely out of paper to represent the Declaration of Independence and all of the major like literature that was signed in Pennsylvania, because Pennsylvania is like one of the key states that formed the United States at the time. So the Gettysburg Address was signed here, our Declaration of Independence, like our amendments of the Constitution, everything was signed in Pennsylvania. So my whole dress was made out of paper, and all of the paper had the pages of all of these on it. So I couldn't really figure out how to fit Conan into that. And then for Germany, I grew up, I think you guys can relate to this, right? Knowing women in your life, right? And also being a man, like you grew up hearing about all these fairy tales, right?
Yeah.
So what's a famous like English fairy tale?
Well, all our fairy tales are Grimm Brothers fairy tales that just translated to English.
I like it. Well, I didn't know if there was one that was from like England. So we'll have to look too. So I decided to do Little Red Riding Hood. Even though she wasn't originally German, the most famous version is German. And I had this cute idea of taking a wolf and putting him on a skateboard because I wanted it to look like he was in bed and pulling the bed across the stage. He was so adorable. I really think the wolf is what I actually ended up winning a costume award this year for when I competed in Mrs. World. And I really think it was the wolf that did it because he was just more adorable than anything. And so I wanted to represent the fairy tale country because everyone knows that German fairy tales, you know, that's where a lot of them come from. Snow White, again, the Little Red Riding Hood, a bunch of different fairy tales, Hansel and Gretel, come from the Brothers Grimm. So it was really, really fun. The costume part is really fun. So not yet. If I figure out a way to involve Conan the Barbarian, it's on my list because her costume is really, really, really sexy, and it's really, really powerful as well.
Yeah, we've got some images up now. It's pretty. It's both of those descriptions. Yeah.
Right.
So, like, now you've won the costume once. Do you think that's like changed how you are going to approach the costume next time? Do you think like maybe that carefree attitude towards your costume, not carefree, but that's a more playful attitude towards your costume that time is going to mean that you, I don't know, approach the costume next time with a similar vibe, or you're going to go for something different, maybe something more serious?
So I guess it's just going to depend on what pageant system I do. So there were several different costume awards in the Mrs. World organization, and I won most whimsical costume, which is pretty cool. So there was like best costume, overall costume award, whimsical, and I think it was like most colorful or most, I can't remember what it was. There was 4 of them. So it was really exciting. So now, of course, I'm like, yeah, if I get to go back and compete with a costume portion, like I'm totally already starting to think about like, well, if I was representing, you know, if I go, you know, do Pennsylvania, like what would I do? And if I did Germany again, like what would I do? And if I did, you know, any other part of my heritage, like what would I do? So of course I've already been like brainstorming because it makes you get really excited for something that you get to create.
So going into sort of how you got into pageantry and how you started, you've mentioned before that your dad was a photographer as you were growing up, and you mentioned that put you on the path of going into pageantry. So we were just kind of interested, like, into sort of how that experience put you on that path, and if it helped with your preparation in a lot of ways, because obviously you said you did modeling and stuff as well. So being behind the camera, I guess, also kind of relates to what you do in pageantry. It's a lot about the way you look and the way you present yourself. It
does relate. There is differences. So like you said, I did grow up, my dad was a hobby photographer, and I started off more behind the scenes. I started modeling actually very, very young. I did Sears catalogs, which is like a department store here. They don't even have them anymore, like these catalogs, kind of like Toys R Us catalogs, like the big toy catalog. And I grew up starting to do modeling competitions, like runway competitions, just like different posing, entering my photos, and kind of different stuff like that. And then I started getting into, as I got a little bit older, around like my teenage years, 18, 19, I started to do like bikini competitions, just because I was it was easier for me to be more fit then. And I really loved to be on stage. So I was like, oh, let me try this. And I just kind of started to fall in love with the aspect of the connection piece to competing and the drive to continue to work on myself as far as learning about myself, continuing to evolve within myself. And then once I had my kids, it came more so from, well, now what can I do that can impact someone else? What can I do that can impact my community? What could I do that could impact the world? Because I fell on some really hard times right after I had my son. And it really made me realize that doing pageantry can actually give me that voice that I didn't have at the time.
When we first got in touch, I was quite excited about doing this interview because it's not something that either of us, have really any idea about in terms of pageantry. And we got thinking about sort of how it comes across to people who don't know much about it. And we thought, with the media sort of portrays it as something that's quite superficial. And I saw a TV show, I don't know if you've heard of it, called Pageant Moms. I think it's an American show, and they kind of make it seem like it's very like chaotic and hectic, and everyone's kind of rude to each other. And I'm assuming that that's not actually the case. So we were wondering if what your thoughts were on how people sort of stereotype pageantry, and how there's a lot of people that don't really understand what it is. They just kind of assume that it's not what it is.
So I never did pageants as a young child. I can't speak to that. So I don't know what that is like. And my daughter is 8, and she did her first pageant when she was 5, and it was a virtual pageant. So she never had to do all that. So I truly cannot speak to the younger pageant systems. I can only speak to the systems that I've done, which are the Mrs. America system and the Mrs. World organization system, which are the 2 largest systems for married women in the country, but especially in the United States. It is not like that at all. I will freely admit that I have experienced some bullying, and yes, some negativity from certain individuals, but it gets stopped immediately by the directors. And it never happened at the events. This actually happened online. I was being cyberbullied from a contestant, and they were just basically just saying a lot of lies about me as a person, and just trying to just do some negative things when they were getting into the competition, and it was immediately stopped and addressed. But 95% of the time, so I'm leaving her, and this example is 5% just because it was very impactful to me. You don't have that. I have sisters, and when I say sisters, when you compete, you meet people, of course, from your industry. I have sister queens from the past 5 years that I've been competing, both locally in my state, across the United States. I have a sister in every state. And now that I competed internationally at Mrs. World, I have a sister in 48 countries. And when I say sister, we still talk, we still have a group message. We are still checking on each other, whether that's on Facebook or Instagram, and we support each other. And more importantly than that, it's not, when you're a little older, it's not about the woman to your left or to your right, because realistically, they are not your competition. And that sounds so odd, but at that day, when you're interviewing with the judges, you are your own competition. You have to be in the right mindset. You have to be presenting the best version of yourself that you possibly can that day. And if you are, you're going to walk away a winner, which I did, even though I didn't place in the Mrs. World competition at all. I didn't make top 20. I didn't make top 10. I still walked away a winner because I went in there with a goal and I achieved that goal. And so I'm walking away a winner because I still have a title that I said I was going to do things with no matter what happened. And I'm still going to do them. There's still people out there that need to hear what I have to say and need to understand that it's never too late to speak up against injustice in many different forms. It's never too late to get involved. And no matter what resources you have, no matter if you don't have a lot of money or if you have a lot of money, every single person in this world has a story to tell. And my job, my goal is to help you learn how to tell that story and to help you change one thing in your life for the better. That's my goal. And if I can do that to just one person, then I've reached that goal.
That's great. I love that your message is so positive, and I think that you're probably going to instill that positivity in anyone who listens to this, or the many podcasts that you've been on and continue to be on, which is great. And you've had some pretty tough times, as you have mentioned before. Like in 2005, you suffered. Your dad suffered a heart attack, which you say changed your life when you were only 17. Would you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So in 2005, my dad suffered a major heart attack that ended up leaving him paralyzed on the left-hand side still to this very day. So he is alive. He cannot walk or stand up at all. He has to sit in a high back wheelchair, and he can only sit for a few hours at a time until he gets in discomfort. And I had just graduated high school when this happened, and I was only 17. My birthday's in July. Excuse me. And so I didn't turn 18 until right after this happened. When he had his heart attack and stroke, it literally changed my life, because I was living in my home with my brother, who's only 18 months older than me. He was only just about to be 19. And a family friend who was also another gentleman, and they were also young. So there was 3 young adults trying to take care of this household, in addition to trying to just manage their own life. And we ended up losing our family home because we just couldn't afford it anymore. And I chose to move to my mother's house, which at this time, my mother and I were kind of rebuilding our relationship. We were a little bit distant before this. And it doesn't sound like very far, but I moved about an hour away, which if you ever lived in a big city and you move an hour away to like a more suburb or rural area, it is a huge difference. And especially at that age, I'd already graduated high school and I wasn't in college because I did not actually want to go to college yet. And B, because there was so much stuff going on with my dad, I really wanted to try to be there for him. But life had another plan for me. And I truly believe that this all happened for a reason. And so I moved about an hour away where I didn't know anyone or anybody, or I didn't even know where the hangouts were. So that's kind of where everything kind of started to go downhill, so to speak.
I was interested in something that was, for me, it seems like pageantry is quite an independent task. It focuses a lot on yourself. And at that point in your life, at only 17, you must have been forced to be incredibly independent, trying to run a household, look after your dad, but also just deal with the mental stress that all of this stuff will put on you. Do you think that sort of early stage preparation to being a strong, independent person has aided you in sort of creating and crafting this, the person that you really are for the stage that is, Miss Pennsylvania, Miss Germany, Miss World, Mrs. that you'd be on?
I do think it helped, but I also have to say that I definitely wouldn't have been able to do this if it was just myself. And I'm hoping we can touch base on that. But if it were just me, I really don't think that I would be doing what I was doing now, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But because of the people I surrounded myself with, and really a couple handful of individuals lifted me out of this negative hill, which goes pretty deep, and really helped me to become this woman who I now say that I was always supposed to be.
So one thing I wanted to sort of mention, and something that I've sort of read about a lot and heard about a lot, and a lot of people talk about, is making kind of good use of adversity, like the benefits of going through struggle, and then after dealing with challenging situations, using that struggle and that resilience that you've built up for things that are positive. So, in I don't know, so in my case, there's been difficult situations in my life that in a few years down the line, I've noticed that I've been able to deal with other situations because I've just built up this sort of mental resilience. And I'm assuming that it's been sort of a similar situation in your life, and where at a very young age, you've had to, you've dealt with situations that not everyone has had to. And now that you're a little bit older and you've got a bit more freedom to achieve and to work on the things you want to work on, do you think that your struggles at a younger age have helped you to have a more positive outlook and, have just more mental resilience to deal with things now?
Absolutely, 100%. But again, I have to say I didn't do it alone. And like I said before, without the people that I'm around, especially now my husband, I really don't think that I would have been able to get into this mindset, because I was in a very dark place for a very long time after leaving my son's father. I was in a very dark place.
One thing that I've noticed from listening to some of your interviews that I thought was interesting and powerful is that you seem to have a great ability to reevaluate the past. And so, I mean, we haven't touched on it now, but you were a victim of domestic violence with your son's father, and your ability to sort of reevaluate that time and the relationship that they have now, and your ability to reevaluate sort of, how these things have affected you, but how you can turn these into positives. Kind of really inspiring. I really like to listen to that point.
Absolutely. So when I talk about the story of me going through domestic violence, I always ask that you close your eyes and just kind of follow me along, because I really feel like when you try to visualize it, it goes through it. And I also like to warn, especially for podcasts, you never know what the age of the listener is, that my story is a little bit graphic, and there is violence in it. So if that, doesn't suit your learner, you might want to skip ahead a few minutes of the podcast. So I always like to do those two things, because when I tell my story, I do it in a way because I want that impact, and I want people to understand what it was really like. So I ask you guys to close your eyes and just imagine this, okay? So you're sitting in your living room, and I'm assuming you guys are friends, right? So one of you is not going to hold the baby, and the other person's going to hold the baby. Doesn't matter who. But you're holding your infant son, and he's about 4 months old. And all of a sudden, your partner, whether that's your wife, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, whoever that may be, runs down the stairs, picks you up, slams you into the ground, and proceeds to pour beer in your eyes. This whole time, you don't know where that infant went. You don't know if the infant's on the floor. You don't know if you're still holding the infant. You don't know if you threw the infant because of all this going on. You really don't know. Then, after this beer gets poured into your eyes, you get literally picked up again by your throat and slammed into a drywall so hard that the drywall actually cracks. All because your significant other thinks that you threw away a crushed up pill. this is actually what happened to me. And this was the first time that I knew 100% that he had a drug problem. I had suspicions before then, but I could never actually prove it. If I would bring it up, he would deny it, and all kinds of other things. And this, I will say that this was the first time in our partnership that he was physically violent towards me. And this was the only time that he was physically violent towards me. There have been other times where he's been verbally abusive since then, not recently, but after this happened, before he, got rehab and got help. And there was a lot of times beforehand that he was mentally and emotionally abusive. I just didn't realize it. I didn't see the signs. And so that same day, I chose to leave. Now, to make it a little harder, at the time, I was driving a Chevy Camaro convertible. It was my cool car, okay, guys? It was like my fun. I was a teenager. I could still put the baby in the back seat. Like, it was my, okay, just hang in there with me, all right? And it was a drop top. It had a cloth drop top. And I walked out to leave, and not only was the drop top cut, like physically cut, it was actually, I think it was sliced open with a knife, because there's no way you could actually cut that with scissors. And my tires were punctured, all 4 of them. And to this day, I can't say it was him, because no one actually saw who it was, but it was either him or someone he was affiliated with, because he was very angry that day that this all happened. So in the time frame that he left the house, because he left after this incident, he stormed off, I'm assuming to get drugs, but I don't know again. And I don't want to ever assume, but he left the house. I'm trying to scramble, getting what I could get that would literally fit in a duffel bag. And mostly I was focusing on the baby. I was like, let me get his bassinet. Let me pop this down. Let me get this. Let me grab his bottles. Let me get all this stuff. I was really focusing on the baby. I didn't really grab a lot of stuff for myself. And then I walk outside to get ready to go, and I can't go anywhere. So I called my friends and family, and they rushed. They bought me 4 new tires on new rims. Keep this in mind that they got him put on new rims, because I couldn't get my car fast enough away to the dealership, right, to get new tires put on, right? So that they literally brought me new rims and tires preloaded. We changed all 4 tires, and then they took the tires back to the dealership. The dealership was told what was going on, so this dealership helped me out. Then we basically duct taped my convertible so that I could drive, because it was pretty bad. And where the slit was right by where I put the baby. And I don't know if you guys know anything about convertibles, but the back of the seat is like a coupe car. So it's like more like a racer car. So when you put in a car seat, it's pretty much there. Like, you don't want to move it. It's not good to move. So I was like, I don't want to move this seat because it's already in. I've already had it checked. Like, I didn't want to risk putting my infant in this car without it being where it's supposed to be. And I literally left that day. But right after the event, I found out that I ended up handing the baby to my friend, who literally just held the baby and was looking, or took the baby outside and tried to figure out what she should do, because she didn't want to call 911 and provoke him anymore, and she didn't want him to come after the baby. It was so fast, it was crazy talking to her later about what happened. She's like, I didn't know what to do. I just knew to grab the baby and go outside. She's like, I didn't know if I should call 911. I didn't know what to do. She's like, I was so worried that you were dead.
So you're lucky to have sort of the support there around you, as well as being sort of courageous in yourself to know that you just had to leave straight away.
I was blessed. I truly blessed, because I always tell people, it doesn't matter what you believe in, but there was a higher power that made sure that my friend was there that day. When I left, though, I had nowhere to go. So I could have moved back in with my mom, but at the time she lived 4 blocks away from my abuser. And so I chose not to do that because I was so afraid of him either coming after me, again, coming after our vehicles. My mom had dogs at the time. She still does, but they're obviously not the same dogs. But, there was a lot of stuff going on at her house where I just didn't want to invite that type of negativity to the house. And like I said, I didn't know who did this to my car. A few months after this, I had to come back in the area to get some belongings that my mom ended up getting me. And I had parked my car by her house. And then when I came back out, my whole driver's side door was keyed. To the extent where, like, it literally wasn't fixable. Like, you would have had to take the door off, take all the paint off, and do that. So it was a cosmetic thing. So I didn't care. I just got the stuff and I left again. And during this time, I was homeless. Like, I had nowhere to go. I stayed between different friends. I was constantly moving around. There was one friend that I was predominantly staying with, which I won't say who it was because, just for her protection and if, anything ever happens again. But if it wasn't for her and her family, like, I literally don't know where I would have went. So it took me a while to actually get housing because I left immediately and I had nothing. I had no work. Like I said, I had very minimal clothes. And the work that I was doing prior to having my son was the nightlife industry. I was working in the nightlife industry for years. So I really didn't have like I call it like the I don't want to say the mom job, but the normal like 9-to-5 job, which is what I needed now because I had this infant and I needed to put him in childcare because I had no one else to help me. So that's kind of what transpired during that period of going through that domestic violence. And looking back at it, I do think he was an angry person. I still feel like sometimes he may struggle with that, but he's now rehabbed. He has been clean for over 2 years. I like to say that. After this all happened at the age of about 6 months, I think my son was. And for sure, when he turned 2, from the time that my son turned 2 to the time that my son turned almost 10, he wasn't involved in my son's life at all. No birthday cards, no calls, no text, nothing. I had no idea where he was. I had no idea what he was doing. I just kept telling my son, and I still to this day tell him he was working. He was trying to get his life right. He was, out there doing what he needed to do because it wasn't my place to tell him what happened. He wasn't old enough. And then around my son's 10th birthday, he had been in rehab and we started to go through a custody order where he started to get partial custody. We went through visitation first where we physically went to a facility where he had to go and spend time with my son just to make sure that he wasn't doing drugs. We proceeded to 4-hour visitations and just increased to, a day every other weekend. And then now we're every other weekend, pretty much. And then for the first time ever, this actually just I think it was a few weeks ago now, I let him take my son out of state to Ocean City, Maryland to swim in the ocean. And so it went really, really well. And again, I have to say I'm blessed because I get to actually live and tell that story. And it's a happy ending. Like the person actually sought out help. They got into rehab. He's doing much better. He has a job. He's, doing what he's supposed to be doing. And more importantly, he's back in my son's life because I truly believe that every child needs a father. And he does have another father figure. So my dad I always say it's a bonus dad. And not in an offensive way, but in an endearing way. My husband has been that father figure for my son since my son was 2 years old because my husband has been around since 2010.
Wow, it's like such a powerful story, and you say that you're blessed, but I guess like your ability to reevaluate things and to let negatives eventually become positives. The people around you are blessed to have you as that, and you know your child now has, like you say, like a bonus dad as well, because you have the ability to reevaluate that story.
It seems like forgiveness is a big part of that, and it's obviously it's great to hear that it's kind of come full circle and that it's worked out in a way, you know, for the best. But I think forgiveness is the word that just keeps coming to mind, because a lot of, you know, in my experience, a lot of after things happen like that, you don't really see much forgiveness. You see a lot of anger and a lot of negativity, and it usually doesn't come to a resolve like it has in your situation.
And I will definitely say there was anger and all of that there at first. It took me a while, and this is going to sound even more strange, but I was able to forgive him for that first before I was able to forgive myself. It took me a really long time to realize that it wasn't my fault. And the reason why I keep saying I'm blessed and I keep trying to point that message out is because I really thought that my life was going to be taken from me. And then leaving this experience, kind of, I call it now kind of going through more of like a postpartum depression. Like after you leave, you know, I was still very young. My infant child was still very young. I actually contemplated taking my own life as well. And I realized that that's totally not what I wanted to do. And that's why I say it's kind of like postpartum, because there's another word that they said, but it wasn't because I was actually thinking about taking my own life. It was because of this traumatic event and all of the doubt and negativity. Like I started thinking I was a bad mom. I started thinking I was a bad person. I really thought I was like worthless. Like I never thought that I would have another man who actually loved me for me. I never thought like another person would love my son that was from another man. Like there was a lot going on. I'm like, well, you know, now I'm just going to be this single mom who, you know, can't date anybody or can't be with anybody because I already have a kid and this child isn't theirs. And, you know, this man, you know, basically tore me down. Like, you know, he made me feel ugly, worthless. You know, he made me feel unattractive. Like all of that was there. And then, like I said, I have to really thank my friends and family, and more importantly, my husband, for working with me and getting me out of that mindset, because I definitely could have been there and I could still see myself there. It's still, when I talk about those kind of things, I can still find myself holding back like the trembles and the tears, because the pain is still there, never goes away. You're able to talk about it a lot more and you're able to come over it, but it's never going to just completely go away.
Yeah, it's a fantastic message that Miss Pennsylvania and Miss Germany World at one point felt like she was not worth anything, and then obviously that turned out not to be true. Cool.
Looking good isn't all you need. Intelligence and compassion. All three a pageant winner.
I'm game for whatever you guys want to talk about.
To be a pageant winner. To be a pageant winner. To be a pageant winner.
We're interested in sort of the methods that people use for these things, and pageantry's quite something, and so I'd love to dive into how you go about even preparing for one of these.
Absolutely. So since you guys don't know a lot about pageantry, is it okay if I kind of give you a quick rundown of what it's like?
Yeah, that'd be fantastic.
Okay, so the first thing is that there are different divisions. So there are divisions for younger children. Typically, they can go anywhere from little miss to teen to preteen. And then you have your older divisions, which typically start with the Miss, which is MISS. And those are the ones that you see televised, like Miss USA, Miss Universe. And those pageant systems are typically for 18 to around 27 is the age limit. But in those divisions, there are specific rules that you can never be married and you cannot have children. So right out of the gate, I couldn't do that one because I had a child at 19. Then there is the Miss division, which is MS. And these pageants are now a little bit broader, but at the time frame, so you have to think that this was when I was 19, which was almost now 15-ish years ago. I'm like, I can't do math this early right now. But over 15 years ago, they were for women that were typically older than 25. And it didn't matter if you had a kid or if you didn't have a kid, but you were typically not married in this division. Now, nowadays, they have a broader spectrum. It's kind of like a division if you don't fit in another division. So you could be married, unmarried in some cases, divorced, have children, not have children. It's a more broad term, but back then it wasn't like that. And then there's the Mrs. division, which is MRS, which, as most people know, is what you get when you become married. So the only qualifications that you have to have in the Mrs. America system is that you have to be legally married. So if your state recognizes your marriage, you are considered legally married. And you have to live or work in the state that you are representing. So at the time, I lived in Pennsylvania. I still live in Pennsylvania, and I lived there for more than 6 months. When I got to represent Germany, it was the first time ever in the Mrs. World organization that they opened it up to what they call a heritage representative. So I was not born in Germany. I did not live in Germany, but I have family in Germany, and I am a part of a European Heart Network that is based in Germany, based off of my platform. And I have a lot of friends and family. One of my friends is actually coming home from Germany. Her and her husband have been living there on deployment for, I believe it's 4 years now. So I still have a lot of friends and family. And my plan with 2020 was to go to Germany and visit her and visit my family. But COVID kind of took that out of the way. So right now I can't go because they're still not allowing international travel yet.
No.
So the plan was there, but it just wasn't there. So the cool thing about representing my heritage was I had to prove my background. So my grandmother on my dad's side, great grandmother, her last name is Braun, which is German for brown-eyed girl. That's actually what it means.
Nice.
And I found out that her family was originally from Cologne, Germany. And so when we were kind of getting all this information out, my dad had always talked about his, growing up, the German food, like he talked about his like culture and his grandma and all this other stuff. It was really cool to kind of dive into that. And then of course learn so much more about that culture. So it was really an amazing thing for me to represent a part of my history and ancestry of my German culture. But on the other side of my family, on my mother's side, I have Belgium, which is right next to Germany, and Hungarian. My mother's grandfather, it was actually born in Budapest, Hungary. So it's pretty cool to learn about your heritage and then see like where you really are from. So I'm a big European mutt. I always like laugh because I'm like from a little bit of everywhere in Europe. But those are the two largest percentages that I actually have, which when I went through and did like the ancestry DNA, because I already knew around how much I had, I just didn't know exactly what it was. It was pretty cool to see that it was a pretty big percentages considering I would be 4th generation, 5th generation around that. It was really, really cool to see.
Sorry, just going back to how the different pageant organisations are divided. Is there sort of a known reason as to why it's between like being married, being not married, having children, not having children? Like, is there a definitive reason as to why they've done it like that?
So I really feel like when you're a miss, like unmarried, imagine competing against this woman who's married, has kids, who's older. I really just don't feel like it's on the same level. So I feel like when you're a miss, like you're young, I don't want to put it like this, like you're full of life, because that's not correct. Because I really feel like when you're married, you're full of life, but you're still learning. You're still learning a lot about life, love, pretty much all that. And so that's, I feel like, why they had different divisions, but it's not really set out why it actually started that way. This is just my personal belief. And then, of course, when you're married and you have kids, your whole life, especially when you become married, your whole life changes. It's no longer just about you. It's about you and your partner. And if you have kids, even more so, now your children. So I couldn't imagine someone who's 18 or 19 competing against someone who's 40 with 20 years of marriage, that which if you are married at a young age, you are competing against this. But I could find that very difficult, because it's totally two different people in two different walks of life. So that's why I feel like the divisions are separated, but there's really no specific reason. It was just more so to kind of, each person has their own path, so to speak. And it's not negative. So I always like to tell people it's not negative. Like, I don't mind that I can't compete in the Miss division. I like the fact that I compete with other women that are married. It's cool. Not all systems have, so we call it a platform. So like, what do you represent? Like, what's your platform, or what's very important to you? So not all systems require you to have a platform, and not all systems have talent. So like, some systems have talent, some systems have interviews, some systems have different variations of the categories. So the first thing you were asking me earlier, like, how do you even begin to prepare, is you have to find the system that fits you. So for me, it was really important to find a system that had that advocacy piece, and like respected that I wanted to do more than just be a pretty face. I wanted to do more than do parades and just walk around. I really wanted to make a difference in the community. That was my main goal. And I also wanted to find an organization that was kind of been established and known for being established, so to speak. So those core values of what align with you. And again, each system is different. So there's multiple systems out there. In the United States, for married women, I think like the top 4 are the Mrs. America system, the Mrs. World system, which those two systems, they are run by the same people. The Mrs. International system and the Mrs. United States organization. So those are like the top 4 systems. Each system's a little bit different. And so for me, I wanted to find the piece where I could advocate for what I really believed in and to get my message out there. Then you have to figure out what categories do they have. So do they have a talent portion? Do you have a talent? Which I do have a talent, but I don't have to perform it because it's not in my category. Do they have swimsuit, or do they have fitness wear? Are you prepared to do that? I know some people don't want to wear a swimsuit. That's okay. I think that it promotes healthy mindset, healthy lifestyle, healthy body, healthy food. So for me, it aligns with my platform, because my platform is all about heart health. So my method of how to get a bikini body, it's really simple. You guys ready for this? Because you guys could do this right now.
Oh, hit us up, please.
Okay. All right. So how to get a bikini body in 1 minute. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
It's unbelievable, right?
It's unbelievable.
I want you to go and get a bikini and put it on your body. Hashtag bikini body. That when I say that, people are like, oh, well, what do you mean? Anybody can put a bikini on. I don't care what size you are, what shape you are, how tall you are. It doesn't matter to me. Just put it on your body and you're done. You have to be confident in the body that you have. Now, if you want to get a better body or to get more fit, then we can talk about that. But any body can be a bikini body. I don't care who you are, what you look like. So that's how you get a bikini body in 1 minute. Go get a bikini, put it on your body. Done.
Perfect.
Great.
So in the system that you've taken part in, then what does it involve? What is the competition? What are the steps? What order is it in?
Yep. So the first thing that you do, so we'll start with Mrs. Pennsylvania. You compete locally. So you submit your bio. So you submit basically like a resume to the pageant director, and they select you. They cannot select you. And then you get your local title. So my first local title was Mrs. Allegheny County, which is right outside of the Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. It's like the county that represents Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Once you get your title, then you start to prepare. The categories were interview, swimsuit, and evening gown. Okay, those were the categories that you were being judged in. Now, in addition, they did have costume and introduction, but those aren't scored. And so what I mean by that is that the portion of the scoring was 50% interview, 25% evening gown, and 25% swimsuit. So in my system, they give you a color of swimsuit, and it has to be a one piece in the married division. So they'll say, oh, it's a royal blue swimsuit. You can pick whatever royal blue swimsuit you want. It just has to be royal blue, and it has to be a one piece. And you can wear whatever you want for interview, and you can wear whatever you want for evening gown. The only rule was it has to be a floor length evening gown. So it means it has to come completely to the floor. It can't be like one that comes to your knees and then comes to the floor, like a high-low, they call it. It just had to be floor length. So you kind of seek out the categories and you start to prepare for those categories. So for interview, you get 4 minutes to talk to the judges. And sometimes it's a panel interview, like what I'm doing now. There's more than one judge. Like you guys are my judges right now, okay? But sometimes it's just one-on-one. They call it like round robin, where you're sitting with the judge, you stand up, you move to the next judge.
All right.
So panel style is like American Idol style, I call it, right? You're standing on the stage, they are asking you a whole bunch of questions, and you're answering them. Or sometimes you're sitting. Round robin is when you start with one judge and move around the room until you complete every judge. But each interview is only 4 minutes long. So imagine trying to tell your whole life story in 4 minutes.
Mine may be, but yours, I don't think so.
No, I think if we really delved into it and got into it, I think that your life story would be more than 4 minutes. So you have to figure out, like, with interview, the challenge is, what do you have to tell the judges? So for me, I make a list, right? There's 3 things that I have to tell the judges before I walk out of the interview. Number 1 is, what is my plan? What do I plan to do with partnering with this organization? Number 2, why should they choose me? And not why as in like, oh, well, because of this, this, and this, and this. This, like, I'm showing them like my characteristics and my resume, so to speak. Like, what have I already done? I'm proving to them this is why they should pick me. And number 3 is I have to teach them something. So that's very important to me. I have to leave the judges with a teachable moment that they may have never known before. So whether that's within talking about heart health and how I started to advocate for that, whether that's talking about my story with domestic violence and how I chose to leave, and I started a project called the Emerge Project, where I help women learn how to tell their own stories. Whether that's when I talk about my Haircut Foundation, where now, because I'm in a place to give back to my community, I now provide free haircuts, and I've been doing this for over 10 years to veterans, homeless, shelters, and just basically anyone who can't afford a haircut. Or whether that's advocating for my son who has a mental and behavioral disability through his education. So in one way, I have to teach them something. So for me, those are the 3 key components in interview. which everybody else may not agree with that. But for me, when I go in to talk to the judges, that's what I have to do. If I do those 3 things, I'm cool. For swimsuit, it's a lot of working out.
Yeah.
You wanna be fit. And when I say fit, I don't say like you have to be like this Olympic athlete. Like I'm saying fit as in like healthy height to weight body ratio. Like, you know what I mean? If I have curves, if you guys have looked at my profile, like I am not stick thin. I have curves, I have hips, I got legs, but I am fit. I work out every day. Once I get off the podcast with you guys, I'm actually gonna go work out. You know, you want to just promote that healthy lifestyle. And of course, for me, it's so important to talk about that because that's all about heart health. And then for gown, you really just want a gown that you feel confident in. So for me, I like fitted gowns because I work really hard on my figure. I bust my butt and I work out with my kids running around. I work out in my basement, which if you guys have ever come to the States, you have to come to Pittsburgh because I need you to understand that our basements are really, really small. Like I can barely stand up completely straight. And if I try to jump in my basement, I hit my head. And we have a cool thing called the Pittsburgh potty. So we have bathrooms, literally a freestanding toilet in our basements for no reason. No, they're not really there for no reason, but they're there for a reason. It's just something cool that Pittsburgh has that no other city has. Right. So if you ever come to the States, you have to come to Pittsburgh so I can show you guys around.
We'll hit you up and we can do you can take us through your workout in the gym itself in Miss Pittsburgh.
We can actually do that virtually. I can Zoom workout with you guys.
Oh God, I don't know if I'd be fit enough.
You could do it, trust me. If I can do it, you can do it. Trust me. And I do that a lot actually with my friends because accountability is so important. I'm like, hey, do you want to jump on this Zoom workout with me? And they kind of giggle and laugh, but it's so good to have people that are good with you. And then everything else just kind of falls into place. So you just have to prepare for those categories. And I always tell people, you dress like you're interviewing for a job. So you don't have to wear like a suit. You can if you want. I wear a lot of red just because my platform's heart health and it's go red for women. And I like red. Red's a power color. I look good in red. I like red. It works for me. So I wear a lot of red for interviews, but sometimes I don't. And again, for evening gown, it doesn't really matter what color you wear. I tell people, you know what colors you look good in. So pick a color that you are confident in. Pick a style of dress that you're going to be able to walk in. And most importantly, make sure it's fitted to you. So if you're really tall like me, when I wear heels, I'm 6 foot. I have to make sure that gown's long enough to come to my feet, but that it's not too long where I'm going to trip over it. So it's really just about knowing those little things. And when in doubt, hire a coach. There are coaches for pageantry. There are people that are out there that do this for a job to help you learn how to do it.
So for swimsuit and for evening gown, does it take place at like a large venue, like with a stage and you're sort of like a catwalk, or is it just like in front of judges?
So it's going to depend on the system, but typically the interview is the only portion that's done one-on-one. Then they have something called preliminaries. So if you guys ever watch Mrs. Universe online, they do like a preliminary where every single contestant's on the stage and you get to like walk the catwalk. So absolutely, man, that's like my jam. Yeah. Stage, I belong on the stage. I should live on the stage. I love it. It's my favorite place in the world, on the stage, because I can't see anybody on the stage because I'm super, super blind. So I wear glasses and contacts. So I can't see anybody in the audience. So it doesn't bother me to be on the stage. And you walk like a little pattern. It's like typically like a T walk. So you walk up to the front, walk to the left, walk to the right, go back to the front. So you got it. I see your little hand motions there. And then for evening gown, it's more of like a softer T. So I call it a figure 8. So you walk up, you walk in a figure 8, you walk around, you walk back. It's more like a curved. So yeah, it's like that's typically live in front of an audience and in front of the judges. And then after preliminary, they pretty much know the top, whatever it is. So it's either top 15, top 10, and then they announce that live on the final show. In the final show, those people who are in the top 15 typically compete again. Now, sometimes it's in the same swimsuit. Sometimes they get a different color to just signify that they made it to the top 10. And then you compete again in that top 15, or again, whatever the top is, in swimsuit and evening gown. And then in evening gown, they keep eliminating. So then it goes down for, if it's a top 10, it typically goes to a top 5. And then you get an onstage question. You answer the question, and then it gets down to 3. And then they announce the winner from there. So it's just going to depend on how large your system is on how they eliminate. So after that, it's super, super quick. It's crazy. And if you don't make the top 15, they do what's called a parade of delegates. So typically in between the top 15 competing, you would come out and do like a line, like a conga line kind of, where you're following each other, like follow the leader.
Not hands
and yeah, you don't want to like put your hands on their shoulders, even though that would be really fun. I would totally have a blast with that. But you're still like parading, and you do come out in your evening gown on the stage. So everyone gets to come out in their evening gown, which is really amazing.
So like, how long is the whole day? Like, how long you must be pretty focused when you're on the stage, and like, how long do you have to keep that focus up for?
So again, it just depends. So typically the live stage portion can be anywhere from 2 hours to 4 hours. They're around typically 2.5 hours, 3 hours. But the interview portion is very quick. Like I said, if you do round robin and you have 5 judges, it's 15 minutes. But the whole day, it's long. You know, you're starting getting ready at 11 a.m., 9 a.m., you know, whatever time your interview's scheduled, you have to be ready before that. And then you're trying to get all your stuff ready. You're trying to get it down into the theater. You're trying to, you know, eat. You know, you're trying to make sure that you have everything. Like, it is a very long day. And since you're doing it twice, you have to do prelims and then finals. You have to do that live portion twice.
Yeah, that sounds pretty intense.
It's really fun though. And then when you get done, it's like, oh man, we're done. Like, because after the winner's crowned, like the pageant's done. The pageant week is done. Like, you're done with everything. So you're like, man, like, I have to go home now? Like, what am I going to do now? So, you know, you kind of get that like wall almost afterwards.
In all of this, how do you obviously, because you're advocating for heart health awareness, how does that come into play? How is your platform used to advocate for what you're promoting?
Absolutely. So the first thing that I teach in my platform is simple tips and tricks to become heart healthy. So I do this one-on-one with people, and I have a calendar scheduled, and they can block a 30-minute session with me for free. It's all free. And I basically talk with them about their life. So we'll have a conversation, and I basically say, walk me through a typical day in your life. Okay. And then I try to kind of take a few moments and I evaluate where do I think is the easiest place that they can make a change to start to become heart healthy. So for instance, for someone like myself, I'm really busy. I do a lot of things. Even though heart health is in my life, if I never had anything heart healthy, maybe the first thing I'm going to start with is my cereal. It sounds really simple, but changing your cereal to maybe a rolled oats, or again, like a egg white breakfast, that's one thing that you can do to become more heart healthy. The other thing that I advocate is for people to learn hands-only CPR, because you can literally learn it online right now through the American Heart Association. And I can even teach it to you over the Zoom just by simply remembering the song Staying Alive. So you guys know the song, right? Staying Alive. So any song that has about 100 beats per minute, is a song that you can use. So if that's not a cool song that you like, there's a whole bunch of them. I think there's Beyonce, Crazy in Love. I think there's a whole bunch of them. So pick a song that you're going to remember, and you're going to do your pushes. So you're pushing into their chest during that song, those beats, to keep them alive. And it's hands only. So you're not doing mouth to mouth. And you can literally learn hands only CPR from the internet. You don't have to get a certification. So that's huge for me, is if you can learn CPR, you can literally save somebody's life. It actually changes somebody's percentage to 60% chance that they will fully recover if hands-only CPR is performed. If you can perform full mouth-to-mouth CPR, it increases, I believe, by 70% chance. So there's a huge increase if you can do it. And you'd be surprised at how many people are afraid to act when someone needs CPR. So that's step number 2. Step number 3 is I'm actually an Empower to Serve educator. So I educate for a job. So I actually am a cosmetology instructor by day, super mom by night. No, I'm just kidding. But I actually host webinars like this where they're free, and we go through what is called the Empower to Serve curriculum, which is a curriculum that was made by the American Heart Association that, again, just shows people different aspects on ways to become more heart healthy. So if they're not ready to kind of talk with me individually, this is something that they can do. And if they don't want to do it with me, I show them exactly how to get it on their website, exactly how to kind of find it, and kind of go from there. And of course, through all of this, you're checking in on them. I was recently, this past year, able to speak at a Simply Red fashion show that was designed for the American Heart Association, and I was the keynote speaker. So I was able to actually talk about the effects of heart disease, and I've been actually over the past few months recording different pitches for TEDx, which is the largest, public speaking conference. And that would be my goal, is to actually speak at a TEDx conference about, just heart health and in general. So I've been doing a lot of things. And I also do this too when I'm out in the community. So when I'm doing these free haircuts and when I'm talking to people about, telling their own story, I'm like, well, this is how I started, and here's some things that you can do. And, this is why I'm helping, is because if everyone could tell their story and, again, find that piece of how do I now teach somebody like you guys are doing, the methods, how do you do this? If we can learn from each other, and then we can actually impact global evolution and global education. We can actually get education to parts of the world that maybe didn't have it before. And if we can teach people how to do things with very little to no resources, think about that impact that we could have. That's pretty much my goal.
Great goal. That was good. I feel bad now for putting a rubbish question against such a good question and a good answer. But before, I wanted to ask, you're doing this catwalk that you've got to do for the competition. Do you have a particular style that you go for when you're going on there, like something in your mind, maybe a few words that you want to represent when you're just through your walk?
Like the song "I'm Too Sexy for My Shirt." Is that what you're thinking right now? On the catwalk. No. So it's different for each category. For swimsuit, it's a little bit more of an upbeat walk. It's a little faster. You're not as slow. So of course, because I've been modeling my whole life, it's easy for me to walk a catwalk. But I actually had to change my walk. So with modeling, you're not selling yourself, you're selling the clothes. So you really have no expression. You're kind of more leaning backwards in your walk, and you're walking more with your legs. With pageantry, it's more about confidence and attitude. And I don't mean attitude in a negative way. I mean attitude in like, I have a good attitude. Confidence. So I had to change my walk a little bit, because for modeling, you're it's I don't want to say it's robotic, but it's more stiff, and it's more meaningless. You're not selling yourself, you're selling clothes. Well, in pageantry, you're selling yourself. So in swimsuit, it's a little bit faster of a walk for me. And I am a turner because I am a dancer. So I turn,
Yes.
Which not everybody can turn, and not everybody does turn. I wish I had a video I could show you guys, but maybe I'll do that one day and I'll do a little video. But I turn in my swimsuit just because it's very comfortable for me. And in my gown, I more think regal, and I think, and hopefully you guys will understand this reference. Like, I think of like going to have tea with the queen, right? Because like if you were asked to go and have tea with the queen, like you're gonna sit up super straight, like you're gonna be flawless in your presentation, and you're just gonna have this like poise and etiquette about you, right? You have to. It's the queen. Like you can't be like slouching, right? So I always think about that because I think like I am a queen, right? And now I have to present myself like that. So queen's not going to go out on the stage like frumping her shoulders or not like holding her head up high. And it's more of like an angelic walk. It's more of a like a slide. It's not as a more fast paced. It's slower. So there is definitely a change. And if you guys get a second, probably after the podcast, I would recommend that you guys like take 5 minutes to watch different clips between swimsuit and gown, just for 5 minutes of any pageant, and you'll understand what I mean. It's like much slower.
Nice.
So going back to heart health, I was just thinking about, obviously we're looking at methods. What do you recommend to people who are looking, to get a healthier heart? Is it mainly diet and exercise?
So of course that's where it starts, diet and exercise. But if they're not ready to change that, because I do understand that is a very hard, and I don't like the word diet. I like literally to talk to them about lifestyle changes. If you're coming and you're looking to change your life, you really have to dig deep. So I always tell them, start with that one thing. Like, what are you ready to change? If you're ready to change food, let's start there. If you're ready to exercise more, what limitations do you have? What time frame do you have? Let's start there. So I always try to individualize it because every single person's at a different point in their life. Like for me, I've been working out forever now, and I eat fairly healthy. I'm going to say 80-20. You always have to have a little love in your life, right?
Oh, yeah.
But if I was going to talk to someone about becoming even more heart healthy, like I'm at a point where I could up it, whereas if someone hasn't exercised or hasn't been eating right for a long time, they're not going to be able to be at that same place. So the first thing I tell them is to check out the Life Simple 7, which is on the American Heart Association's website, which basically talks about 7 simple steps. One of them is becoming tobacco free, like not smoking cigarettes, or e-cigarettes now, which are super popular. So like, let's start with what are you ready to do out of those 7 things?
Sure. Yeah. I guess, like you say, big changes all at once can be very overwhelming for people, and I guess also very, very off-putting for someone who's maybe not where they want to be, but they might have a lot to change rather than just a couple of things to change. So starting with one thing, like you're saying, with something small maybe, and going from there seems like it would be the best way.
Yeah. So for tomorrow, we're going to get on the Zoom and we're going to start working out because he said he needed to work out a little bit more because he doesn't think he's fit.
This is great. Yeah.
We're going to do the 30-day podcast workout challenge.
I'd love to.
Okay.
I don't know how you guys are going to work out with the drums in the background, though. You're going to have to like have a drum session while we're working out and take turns.
We'll be taking this into the garden. Don't worry about it.
Yes.
Okay, I want to do a little section that I'm going to call
Sandahl quotes.
I'm going to read you some of my favorite of your quotes, and I'd like you to just, feel free to elaborate on them. So my first one here is, you said, being nervous makes you humble.
Yes, my father taught me that. Growing up, I was always nervous. I was actually very shy growing up, and I still get jitters when I go on the stage. And I think that to a degree, I'm not saying like you're shaking like completely like having a panic mode, but I always get that little like butterfly, and then I'm like, okay, I got this. And my dad always told me that the minute that those butterflies are gone, you need to kind of check yourself, because then you're not humble anymore. You're not realizing that no matter what, even if you do win, there's always something you can do better. And so that's kind of stayed with me since I was young, because it's something my father taught me.
Yeah, I think that's great. Like, I'm a musician, and as a performer, it's great to have nerves. But I've never, until you said it, I've never really thought about having nerves to keep you humble. And that's such a sort of clear and honest message about the importance of nerves in a performance environment.
Yeah, but you still get them, right? You just, maybe you don't see it as much, as it doesn't affect you anymore. But I guarantee you, like right before the stage, you're like, you shake it off, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Like real quick, and you're like, okay, we got this, right? That humbleness right there. You know, that quick shaking it off. Again, people might not acknowledge it, so I don't want them to think, oh well, I'm never nervous. But they're, to an extent, at one point, whether it's you're getting ready to go to your car, you're getting dressed, you're like, you know, you take that quick breath. That is that effect that you're having.
Yeah, it's like being able to own the fact that you're nervous and you know, control it for something better.
Yes, and say to yourself, wow, like I get to do this again, and it's amazing, and I'm so grateful. It's okay.
Okay, Sandahl quote number 2. You say you have a sister queen in every state. You mentioned this before, but I think this is such a great sort of message about pageantry and just about keeping in touch with people.
Yes. So again, when I competed at Mrs. America, every state was represented there. And so we're all sister queens. So what that means is we're all competing in the same year, and then we all stay in touch. So we have a group that we are actually in a chat group together, that we all talk. We have a Facebook group together. Every so often, like I'll message them and check in with them. Of course, there are some that are more, you know, in the group chatting than others. You know, some people are just very, very busy. That's okay. But I know that if I were to go to any state and these people are still living in that state, like I could be like, hey, I'm coming to Texas. I'm going to be in a part of your state. Hey, you want to get together? Like, we can literally have a conversation, and it's just amazing. And you get to see their life as they move forward from pageantry. You know, 2 of my Sash sisters from 2018 just had babies, and another one's pregnant, and all 3 women were struggling with infertility. They were having a struggle with, you know, having children. Another one of my sister queens, you know, just she's now going back and competing in another system since 2018, and she's going to get back at it again. So it's just amazing to kind of see, like, here's where we all started, and now we can kind of follow each other's journey.
Yeah, inspire each other as well, I guess.
Yes.
Okay, Sandahl quote number 3. Give a voice to the voiceless.
Absolutely. So I think this goes back to the possibility of me losing my life. I was lucky. And when I say I was lucky, I really believed, like I said, that God kept me here. He knew that I was meant for something greater. And I get chills when I talk about this. Like, I have goosebumps right now, because I could have died that day. I seriously could have died. And there are people that their lives are taken every day that had a story that they never got to tell. And so I really believe that we who are left here have to be that voice for people who aren't ready to speak up yet, or maybe lost their voice, or are looking for the voice to set them free. And to me, the fact that I've been able to learn how to tell my story and see impact and see change, and it's been phenomenal. Like, I literally get teary-eyed, because I'm like, wow, I'm doing all these great things, and it's like, I don't even think about me doing them. I'm just like, it's amazing. It's seriously one of the best things that's ever happened to me, to be able to talk for people and give a voice to people who may not have that yet.
Yeah, I mean, the passion with which you talk about helping other people is so apparent. It's like you say, it's not about you, it's about the things that you've done, and I think that comes across really clearly. Great. I wonder if you can guess what the last quote on my list is. I think it's framed in your house.
I don't know. I feel like I'm like, this is kind of cool. Like, I didn't know I had quotes that I'm known for. Like, I'm so excited you're teaching me. Like, I'm like, wow. I'm like, you guys are super impressing me right now. Like, I've never had anybody like go this detailed as far as like listening to my other podcasts and like finding things that like I've said before that intrigued them. Like, this is like, I'm like in shock right now. Like, this is so cool. I'm like blushing right now. You can't see me, but it's like awesome.
Well, there's just so much to talk about. Okay, well, I'll give you a hint. It's about a spiky piece of fruit.
Okay, so it's my one. This is my favorite quote, and it's actually not mine.
No, but
It's a quote that I found that I truly live by, and it actually started after that bullying experience that I mentioned to you earlier. So the quote is, "When in doubt, be like a pineapple. Stand tall, wear your crown," because I really believe that every single person is born with an invisible crown, man and woman and child. And most importantly, be sweet on the inside. And when I say be sweet on the inside, I mean love. Have love for each other. Have love for the world. The world needs so much more love, and kindness above everything will conquer everything. Kindness and love will conquer everything. And it's just one of the quotes that have stayed with me. I love pineapple too, so that just adds to it. I actually have a little jar next to my bed that I put my rings on, and it's like a little pineapple in the middle, and I put my rings on it at night. Like, anywhere I can, I have like a little pineapple, like either sticker or just like glittery. It's on every one of my pageant journals. Like, when I start competing, I write journals. I write down my, fitness quotes. I write down all like the stuff that I need, and so I put it on every pageant journal. And it's just a quote that I live by because it's so true. If we could just learn to stand tall, be proud of where you came from, be proud of who you are. Like I said, every single person, doesn't matter where you are, you have this story. Be proud of that.
yeah, since I had first heard you say it, I've been really thinking about the fact that, as part of that you say, there's always somebody looking up to you. So, and that is true. Whether it's a friend, a girlfriend, a family member or something, there is always someone looking up to you, and that yeah, I've been thinking about it a lot.
So you're going to start to be a pineapple now?
I think maybe I've always been a pineapple, and it's time for me to own it.
Now you're going to own it. Yes, I love it. I love it.
Oh, great.
So I just sort of wanted to piece it all together, but going obviously from growing from your hard times in your earlier years to now, it seems like there's just been such a swap around, such a change in, maybe not a change in your mentality, but a change in your situation, and throughout it you've managed to get to this point now where you're maintaining this mentality that is just unbelievably positive. So does your positive mindset does it come from just yourself, or are there like people or like lessons and things that inspire you that have made you like this?
Absolutely. So the first person that comes to my mind is my husband, because I call him my knight in camo armor. So for the listeners who don't know me, my husband is in the military. Well, retired now. He's a veteran. He was in the Army. And he came into my life at a point where, like I said, I was at the lowest of my low. And we actually met before this. So I actually didn't know this until he told me. So apparently we met when I was dating my son's father in, like, I don't even know when. He said we met at this bar that I worked at, but I didn't remember him. I remember him now after he said that, but I was like, I don't know. And then we met again in 2010. Now, keep in mind that the first bar was in this little old town, like over an hour away. It was in the rural area. Rural. I can't, guys, what I mean. I'm like my mouth isn't working with that word today. So we met at this like out in the country bar. Like, it was like in the middle of nowhere. Then we re-met at this like bar that I was now working at, nightlife industry bar in the middle of Pittsburgh. So again, this was an hour away from each other that we saw each other twice, right? And this is a really funny story. So you guys have to, I hope you laugh at this story. So the first, we talked and talked and talked. They would always come in, him and his group of friends, in their uniforms, because they would come in after like drills and working at the military base. So of course, when military members walk into a bar, like, you know that they're good patrons, you know that they're typically getting off work or going to work, or they're getting ready to deploy. So you're like, let's make sure we give them amazing service. I was always assigned to them because they would always get like a table or like their own place. And the day we started talking, his friend wore a Wisconsin cheese hat. Do you guys know what those are? Like the big cheese hats that are like people wear for like football and soccer.
I didn't know what they were called, but I do know what you mean.
Okay, so I call them a Wisconsin cheese hat because that's like they're known. Wisconsin is known for their cheese, but I don't know what they're actually called. So the foam cheese hat, he was wearing one of these. I'm like, why are you wearing that in the Steelers area, right? Because we're all about the Steelers here. Right. I'm like, you need to leave, right? So I was like, you got to take that off. Like, you can't wear that. And he's like, I'm gonna wear this. But he was so short with my heels on, because we were wearing heels doing like the bottle service, and he was so short that I literally could sit like with my arm on him, like as if he was like a little pillar. And he was like, you are really intimidating with those heels on. And so I was like, no, I'm not. And so I turned to, at this time, he was not my husband. I was like, am I intimidating to you? And he's like, no, like real like nonchalant. And I was like, oh really? Like that, it initially caught my interest. So it was just funny how this all happens.
Wow.
And he really saved me from myself. Long story short, he saved me from myself, because he could have left. I don't know why he was with me when this was all going on, because I was a wreck. And I definitely pushed him away multiple times, because I was like, this is too good to be true. There's no way. Like, he has his stuff together. He has his life together. He was in the military. Like, he has, you know, he's a family man. He loves his mom. He has a good family support. Like, I'm like, there's no way that this man is going to love me and my child. Right. Mm. So I definitely pushed him away, and he stayed through all of it. Like, I seriously don't know how I got so lucky, because we're married, obviously, now. I count my lucky stars every day. I'm like, thank God. Like, I thank God, because again, I have to say, it was definitely this amazing power that was like, no, you are staying there. This woman needs you. You are going to help her. And with his help, and again, the support of my family and friends, I was able to go through programs that were in my area for women that were surviving of domestic violence, to help me get back into a 9-to-5 job, to get the resources that I need that I didn't have, to really kind of turn my life around. And I thank him every day, because he really pushed me to be the person he knew I was, but I had forgotten.
Nice. That's a great story. I love that he remembers seeing you a year before in the bar. You don't remember him. So he must have been really thinking about you for that whole year. And you... I
don't know about that, but he definitely remembered me.
And you turn around, the first thing you ask him is if he is intimidated by you.
Right. Like, I mean, it wasn't really the first conversation, but like, we were having this conversation. I'm like looking at him, and he just happened to be the person like in my vision at the time, that I was like, you know, because his friend said I was intimidating. I was like, am I intimidating to you? And he was like, no. And of course, I'm like, well, why not? No, but that's what I was saying in my mind, because I was like super. Again, I'm super tall with heels on, and at the time, you know, we were wearing like almost like really tall, like go-go boots, like platform, very, very tall shoes.
You were working it.
Yeah, and when you're a bottle girl, you know, you gotta look good. So it's always fun. Plus, heels are nice. You know, they make you feel confident, and again, like they have this little bit of sexiness to them. And what girl doesn't like to wear heels? I mean, I know a couple girls who don't wear heels, but you know, they just make it fun.
Yeah, for sure.
What are you working on now, and what's next for you? Are there any projects that you're working on or working towards, or when's the next competition coming up?
So I don't know if I'm going to compete this year or not. I would like to, but I'm just not sure yet if I can do that financially, which is with everything that happened with COVID and all that kind of just put a damper on everything. But I am working on some projects. So the first project that I'm working on is the Haircut Foundation, or the Haircut Project. And I've been, like I said, I've been doing this for 10 years, but I'm trying to make it an actual nonprofit. So I've been working on the business plans for that, and I'm just trying to fund that right now. And my goal with that is to get a mobile van so that I can go across Pennsylvania and obviously other states and cut hair for the homeless for free, and a portable generator so that I could actually move the portable generator into homeless camps. Because, sometimes a van just can't reach there. So that's my goal with that for the first year that it's running. And then after that, I have a 10-year goal of trying to have a chapter in every state in America, and then possibly, in different parts of the country where, people can do that. And then the other project that I'm working on is a project that, again, I've been doing it for a long time, but now I'm just kind of revitalizing and revamping it yet. And it's called the Emerge Project. And basically what I do is I teach people how to tell their own story. So because I'm an educator, I've basically created a lesson plan, so to speak, to help someone else write their story, learn how to talk about it, and then talk about it. And what I'm hoping with this project is that with these stories, like kind of similar to what you guys are doing, is out of these stories, out of this emerging, whether it's a circumstance or whatnot, what can you teach somebody how to do, that you learned? And hopefully with that, I'm going to be able to get that out to, again, the people that are in need. I haven't figured out how I'm going to put it out. I don't know if I'm going to do a podcast or a vlog or something like that, but I do think that there's probably going to be a video aspect to it, because I want that person to be able to teach someone how to do it. So if you're really good at making podcasts, maybe you could, teach them how to do a podcast. If you're really good at making slime, maybe you're going to teach somebody how to make slime, whatever it is, because I want to get that education piece into that. And then the last project, which is way down the road, because these other two projects have to get up. This is just like me going, till like later on in my life, is I want to take all the stories after I hit 100 stories that are successful from the Emerge Project and turn them into a book, and put that out so that people are able to purchase it, whether it's online or, actually a book, so that people can read it. And then in the back of the book, I'm going to have a little journal for those people who are like a writer that, can start to write their own story. So that's kind of the things I've been working on. But it's slowly but surely coming along, because keep in mind, I have 2 children that are school age, and one of my children does have a disability, mental health and behavioral health disability. I'm a wife. I work full time. I actually work 2 jobs right now. So, kind of little by little, I'm getting there.
Great. It's all kind of in the same area, and it's obviously based around helping people, and it's really just inspiring to hear. There's not that many people who have been through things that you've been through, who then come out the other side to just be pretty much fully focused on helping others, and that's obviously really great to hear. About an hour and a half now, so if there's anything else unless there's anything else you wanted to talk about, I think we'd be happy to round it off.
Just wanted to say thank you guys so very much. I really appreciate like everything that you guys have done. Like, honestly, I'm so grateful that I met you guys. Like, thank you so much for like researching, and like you guys just made my day. So I'm just so honored to be on, and I hope that I succeeded your expectations, and I still excite you to talk to a lot of other pageant queens, and talk to different people. So thank you.
How can the people find you?
You can find me on any social media at Sandahl, which is SANDAHL Taylor, TAYLOR. If you Google me, I'll pretty much come up. I'm the only person with that name. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter. You name it, I'm pretty much on it. And if you follow this podcast, they're probably going to tag me, so that's even easier.
Oh yeah. Awesome. Okay, thanks, Sandahl. That's great. Thanks a lot.
You are so welcome. Thank you.
Okay. No mat then. No mat needed.
Yeah, you won't need it.
Okay. Oh, sorry.
All right, so I'm getting my timer set.
Okay.
And remember, our burner, we're going to try to go for 3 minutes.
Okay, 3 minutes.
30.
30 minutes.
No, 3. 3 minutes.
Oh,
You couldn't do cardio straight for 30 minutes. You would die. Okay, so the burner that we're going to do is a side shuffle.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then we're going to do some, if you guys have enough room, you guys can do some skaters. If you don't have enough room for that, you can do it like a hop. Either one is fine. So what we're going to do is we're going to do increments of 4. So this is why Pinocchio is my man, because I tap him on the side. So we're going to go like we're in basketball. 1, 2, 3. That counts for 1, 2, 3, 4. And then either you can do the skaters, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we're going to go back into that. Or
Okay.
the hop, whichever one you guys have more room for.
We'll probably be alright for skaters.
Yeah, it'll be all right.
Okay. I just didn't want you to hit that plant. Okay?
Oh,
So when you're in the skater, you want to try to jump as far to the side laterally as you can. Yep. Don't hit each other.
We'll try.
Okay? And if you need to take a break in the 3 minutes, that's fine. Take a few seconds and get back into it, because I'm going to have to take breaks.
Okay.
So if you're in here and you're like, oh, take a second, 10 seconds, get back into it wherever we are.
Okay.
All right, I'm setting up my timer so that I can see it. All right, you guys ready?
Yep.
All right, let's start. Skater. 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 We got 2 minutes. Skater. Come on, guys, you got this. Get lower, get those butts low. A minute and a half, guys, get low. Block that person coming down.
Yes! A minute left, guys. 60 seconds. Make this great. Jump far. 30 seconds. No, you're not. They're not going to fall off. Let's go. 15 seconds, guys. 5 seconds. Come on, hustle. All right, stop. Walk slow, don't stop. Hands up. Okay, we're gonna cool down. You guys did it. You guys didn't stop that entire burner.